Alex. I have a Instagram and also YouTube Love Sugar Show. I wanted to thank you all for coming to join me for this interview.
Yeah. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, pleasure is all mine. I will start out with the first question that I ask everyone that I interview. How's it going?
It's going.
Yeah, it's going all right.
It's pretty good. Actually, today's been a pretty good day, so um, just got a lot to look forward to. So
Yeah.
Great.
Same,
Going well.
going
same
well.
way.
That's awesome to hear. So, of course, everyone wants to hear about this EP that you guys are about to release. How do you feel about it now that it's about to be released on actually here in a few days?
Yeah, Friday.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm actually pretty excited. This is kind of there's been a lot of pieces we put in place with this particular release, from the recording process. I think just from a writing standpoint, and just the things that we have going on now as a band. Um, since we started all of this, it's like it's the day is finally here, and it's like watching the sun come over the horizon, you know. So pretty exciting from my perspective.
Yeah, same with me. We've we've recorded before, but never have we put this time and energy into this product and this project, and I feel like we've got a product that really represents us. I think our live shows are really powerful, and I think this gets at that, and that's why I'm very happy about it.
How about you, Michael?
I would mimic what Keith said. I think it's nice to find. I think this is like the culmination of us figuring out who we are as a band, and this is the first real like cohesive recorded project where we all our first EP was like us to get something with me on it, and this is like us figuring ourselves out as a band. And so I think it's great to get it out there, and it's really great that people have been pretty positive about this. So I like that people are digging it. Feels
Yeah,
good.
it definitely helps, especially if you're in a band. You want people to like it or, have something nice to say about it because you always feel good reading those comments.
Hmm.
So, where did the idea come from to start this EP?
Um, it's a piece that actually, or a set of different themes that I had written uh,
Mm-hmm.
25 years ago that I just kind of had locked away. And I was looking at the right potential time to bring it back out, maybe finish it off, bring it to fruition. Um, and we, as a band, we're planning on doing a full length album. And this is one of the first piece, or like I don't know, maybe it was the first or second piece we worked on, kind of right post pandemic lockdown lifting. I just kind of had these like sketches of these three different parts we started working on in our rehearsals.
Mm-hmm.
But as we were sort of putting the sort of flesh on the bones, I guess you could say, or like getting the feel for the pieces down, I was starting to hear additional things kind of pop up with that. So we got sort of the three anchor pieces down pretty good, but then there just needed to be like more. So we kept refining it, um, adding different things in. Some things were missing, and then it expanded out to being six pieces. There was another sort of theme that I had that was kind of related that wasn't really half finished, but I actually was able to put a scratch demo together for that. But I wanted to tie it in as kind of a way to conclude the piece, and it was a kind of a very chaotic piece. They just wanted to end things on a big bang, right? And then we also wanted to have some places for us as musicians to have just some room for improvisational room solo or just to do some things that weren't specifically locked into compositional form. So that added a couple more sections to this. And then I think within like a 6 month period, we had the whole thing just like mapped out then. And then by the time we did that, we played it for a few months, and then we decided, okay, let's do an album, and like let's do it right. We're going to do a full length album, 15 tracks. Just thinking like how CDs were or are sometimes, they have like a lot of tracks on it. It's like, well, okay, so it'll be a lot of music for a CD, but but we're just going to record it all together, and let's just kind of see how it goes. So we started pre-production with that, and then at that point, we were looking at changing some of our instrumentation as a band. Originally, we were just guitar, bass, and drums, instrumental. We were in this lineup for a number of years. Keith started playing music though as a saxophone player. I don't know if you want to talk about kind of coming back to that.
Yeah. I grew up playing sax, and
Okay.
yeah. But as I got older, definitely in college and stuff, I started to play bass guitar more, because I got into heavier music and I was trying to do different things. But COVID helped. Not only did COVID help with the the writing and the arranging of this, but it also helped me kind of get back into saxophone playing more, and it was a good time. Like it just worked out right for this project. Let's bring it into this,
And then we had the idea of switching instrumentation. We've always kind of done that between guitar and bass. I usually, because we actually have room in our composition, so Keith could play a solo or Mike could play a drum solo, and we play underneath them. So it's not just guitar solo, endless walls of guitar solos. That's other bands. Lots of other bands do that. We want to take it in more of a traditional jazz context where all the people in the ensemble have room to express themselves either through improvisation or through conversation, dialogue, and also with solo. So then the idea of like, all right, let's kick it up a notch. Was that like a Guy Fieri thing? And let's do the instrument switching like in real time. Let's figure this out. So Keith had his bass and he had his horn.
Yeah.
And like, all right, like let's figure this out.
Yeah.
And then I play an 8-string guitar, so like for me, it's like I switch between guitar and bass amp, like my sound, and then like we're able to do that. Sometimes we do looping, but being able to work through some of the logistics of doing that as a performance and thinking through that actually helped to inform some of our writing process. This piece in particular, because I wanted to have a different melodic voice in sort of the lead voice in the composition, not just all being again walls of guitar. So we actually took one of the sections I'd written and we rearranged it and kind of rewrote it so actually it was more conducive to a saxophone. The key is a different key, and then just the way the sound works is just a lot more, allows him to be a bit more expressive on the saxophone. So we were in pre-production. We actually switched to that.
And let me interject here and say, and I know we're giving you more than you asked for here,
right.
but I actually,
we're kind of a weird band.
Interject and say that I had been playing, adding sax to other things that we were doing. I haven't actually added sax to this track, this song yet. This was actually Eric's idea. And I think Mike and I both thought he was kind of nuts when he proposed this idea, because we were playing it and we'd already played different versions of this out where I was playing bass on it. And Eric's like, no, what if we change it? We're playing, for musicians out there, we're playing like an E minor and E phrygian and things like this. And he's like, what if we change the key of this just one section to B flat and have you play the sax? It's like, wait, what? Because it was a part of the song that was already really cool, and we didn't like. Mike and I were like, why would we want to screw with this? Like it's working great. But he's like, no, we're gonna change keys and do this and then it worked out. It worked out really well.
And he's referring to part 3, which was our first official single from this, because we thought it was I don't want to weird, for lack of a better phrase, like, the forgiving phrase of weird, but like it was the most, if you listen to Cognitive and then you hear part 3, it is not like it doesn't sound like the same band. And so I think we wanted to like let people know there's been a journey that we've come to,
Yeah.
and that's where part 3 came in. And so yeah, it was to Eric's. Keith and I didn't fully see it, but it was to Eric's like props for him to be like, yeah, let's try it more of like a funk. Let's bring in the sax, and I think it
Mhm.
works. It's a cool middle, for lack of a better phrase, bridge, but it's a cool bridge piece to the song.
And the
Mhm.
different sections all have different characters. There's 6 of them. They all have very distinct characters, even though 2 of them actually kind of repeat form, or the same chords or whatnot. But there's very distinct flavors and very distinct sort of moods and feels for each 6 of these sections. And that one by far really sets off as kind of, you heard the paradigm or the sort of the troop of song within a song. That's really what that is. And then I think as much as the sax informs and just kind of like pulling back all the like crazy loud guitar and effects, and we use guitar synthesizers with all of our stuff, so there's all these layers that we're playing with, and we really strip it down. To Mike's point, he brings it back down with, like, instead of playing these really bombastic huge fills and double bass and all that kind of stuff you'd expect with an instrumental band with metal leanings. It boils down to a very sort of R&B funk, jazz funk fusion kind of feel, and it's really kind of sparse in its arrangement. And I think what it also does is it helps kind of give the listener a break too,
Yeah, I
from
agree.
the bombast and the loud and the fills and the craziness too. It's a kind of a different mood, you know. But
Mhm.
that was one of the, sorry, the roundabout way of, that was one of the other things I wanted to accomplish with the composition, was take the listener on a journey for 20 to 25 minutes. Not just like, oh wow, these guys are really proficient players, listen to them solo, listen to them play drums, or listen to that bass player. I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of instrumental music falls into that category. And you know, sometimes you listen to something and maybe it becomes background music, or you're like, oh wow, that guy's good, but you don't remember the material,
Yeah.
or you have any kind of emotional feeling towards it. But I wanted to avoid like all these like technical music trappings with the piece, and I wanted it to be more of an emotional experience and a ride for the listener. So I think we delivered on that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
agree.
Um,
Something I try to keep in mind even with our live shows, and it came through in this album, is like, as musicians playing instrumental music, it can be very highbrow and making music for musicians.
yeah,
But we
Mhm.
try to make music for non-musicians too.
right.
We try to have, hopefully normal people can listen to this and be like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I did want to talk about this album cover where
Yeah.
I'm kind of seeing the background. Where did the idea for that come from? I love it, by the way. It's really
You probably can't see it. Yeah,
You
I'll
get
take a look.
closer.
See if I can yeah, see if you see the guy here.
oh.
So tattoo that I drew probably about 15 years ago. It comes from a visual. I when I was in my youth, I guess you could say, I was diagnosed with cancer. That's the name,
Oh,
Tropic of
geez.
Cancer. The music was originally written while I was going through the process of treatment for that, chemotherapy and such. The pieces that actually kind of became the genesis of this EP were the more cogent and kind of concrete things I was able to kind of remember and write down while I was going through the process when I was actually able to play. So,
Mhm.
but this is a sketch I did. The idea is it's the Grim Reaper, Angel of Death, however you want to look at it, you know, coming through. There's like a huge like tidal wave coming behind that. There's a season of the different moon phases around that, just to kind of illustrate some kind of level of time. But
Mhm.
the thing about the Reaper is he's not the Sith isn't up, it's down, and the Reaper is carrying the key of life, the Ankh. So it's kind of like about a second chance. So that's where the visual all kind of comes from. It's a painting that I did that based off of the sketch. That's my tattoo. So
That's awesome. What do you guys think about the album cover?
Love it. Yeah, I think it's great. And you're going, Mike. Mike.
No, I agree. It's it could be. It's almost like contradictory to what we play because it could be taken as a heavier band
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
you Grim Reaper, but I think it's hearing Eric's like undertones with it makes like it forms the story more and it helps it realize like, oh yeah, okay, that's why like
Yeah.
there's subtext to it. And so I like it.
For sure. So I know it's an EP, but all the songs are all kind of the same name. Is there a reason behind that? Was it supposed to be like a continuation or just like, okay, this is one section?
So it's 6 sections of a suite.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, we don't always perform it together, but like when we do, sometimes we'll perform the whole thing together as one big old
Yeah.
huge piece, right? Because that's what it is. We look at it as like a symphonic piece.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so Eric was kind of hinting at this, but like the way we recorded this with 7 other songs, we did like a big day or weekend in the studio where we recorded like this and recorded like a bunch of other songs that will hopefully see the light of day next year. But this was all intended to be a piece. Like this is all part of. We always called it Tropic. It was never like, Tropic. We were always doing Tropic 1 or Tropic 3 or 5 or like it was all kind of a cohesive piece. And so like that's where after we recorded the songs, we kind of talked about releasing it as a separate EP and like to give it its own. I think it stands on its own as a release. And I think Keith's quote that got like we haven't even used it, but Keith say like for this to go in with like 8 other songs, I think does this piece a disservice. And so I think this has always been a cohesive piece. Now that we know it, back and forwards, we kind of with our jazz band, we'll play part 3 or we'll play part 1, like in a smooth jazz style, like, but it was always a piece. And so it feels more, I think the proper way to release it was as like 6 pieces. They're all part of the thing. Let's give it its own life. And then people respond. Then next year we'll get more music from us.
Yeah, for sure. So I listened to the album. I think it's so unique. I don't think there's anything like that out there, which I think people really like.
Awesome.
But for the unlucky people who haven't got to hear this, like hear it yet, how would you describe the album to them?
Aside
from a journey.
Yes, yeah, it's definitely a journey. I think when people ask us what genre we play, it's always like, oh boy, here we go. How do I describe this? I would say, I personally tend to lean on it's where prog rock meets jazz fusion. It's kind of the intersection of those two things. So you can take Chick Corea and mix it in with King Crimson, but then just update it. From a genre standpoint, and then this specific album, I'll like it. Yeah, journey. Like Michael said, journey. You're taking you on a journey. Yeah.
Well, it's like heavy. It's like heavy meets jazz. Like whenever anyone asks me, oh yeah, you play live music. What do you guys sound like? Or what? It's all like Keith said. You're kind of like, it's like how can I keep this under a minute? I always say, like, for lack of a better pretentious ethos, I feel like, or pretentious statement, I feel like we have the jazz ethos is kind of our core. Like we always want to be jazz. Did I mute? We want to be jazz, but we want to have like as the ethos. Like we do it more to improv. I am naturally just a heavier drummer. Like I'm not, even if I play with 7A sticks, I just break them kind of thing. Like we can't play quiet. So it's jazz meets like heavy. And I always feel like part 1, give it new names. Part 1 is like, I mean, that's like a salsa to me. Like I feel like it's kind of a dancey salsa.
I agree.
Like, I am. If you ever see me where there's music playing, I cannot not like bounce around. So like instinctually, like I'm always moving to music, and music like moves through me, and I'm just always sort of dancing with music. And so like I think part one is that. I think part two is sort of where Eric hinted, where we play on a similar, a same theme, but we go through like the solo aspect. So it's like, all right, we're going to do bass solo, which is like this is where we can get really nerdy, because on the surface it's like, oh, it's a bass, but it's like it's the guitar playing bass, and then Keith does a bass solo on the guitar playing bass, and then so it's like, and then he goes back to a guitar solo. Then we go to like this funk R&B part. Then we go back to the bass playing a motif, where, and then we get guitar solo, which comes to, I think someone called it the classic rock for part five. The dun, 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 dun. Like that's the way I always imagine that part. And then six is kind of the chaos of, well, we just played St. Paul, the band that played before. She's like, she came up after, she's like, I totally got the wall of sound you guys were going for. Like it just goes into this chaos. And she's like, I was just hearing everything around me, and it was just like perfect. And it was so cool to hear that from someone, because I know that's what Eric was trying for, but to play that in a little bar in St. Paul, like, and for someone to come up to you and specifically say that without seating you, like without you seating them, like, okay, did you feel the wall of sound? Like she just said it. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that's kind of the journey that it takes. Like it feels similar, but it goes all over the place. And I think as an EP, like I think it's, I don't know. That's about it. You
Yeah,
guys
it
can add
really,
on that.
really represents the growth of the band. It's a cohesive piece, but it really we put a lot of our influences on our sleeves in some ways. And yeah, it's, again, the whole journey thing. The latest review we got a couple days ago, Cynic was a band that was thrown around, but so is Funkadelic. Two bands that have heavily influenced us as musicians.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of it. I mean, our PR company is saying Avant Jazz Fusion. I have no idea what that is. We just did another interview where this Italian journalist asked us about prog fusion, which I guess is a genre I wasn't aware of. I grew up listening to progressive rock and jazz fusion. That's people think that we play. So yeah, it's just I kind of look at what we play as a word cloud. I mean, to be honest with you, that's about it. It's just a word cloud, and there's probably a good 25 words in there, and whatever words those people want to grab onto, sure, because we were influenced by a lot of different things. We all love like hardcore punk. We all love thrash. We all love death metal. We all
Mhm.
love Motown. We all love soul. We love prog rock. We all love all these different classical music.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just all the, and of course, I can't even, I didn't even mention the J word, but like that's, I went to school for it, grew up with it.
Yeah. So the elements of all of that come out.
Everything, yeah, it is. It's really hard to just say we're one particular genre, and that's always been a bit of an albatross for us. But it's also freed us in a lot of ways too, because we just play the music we like.
That's exactly right. We're not actually trying to be any of these genres. We're just trying to play the music that we're hearing and feeling.
Well, we set out also to make an album that we wanted to listen to. It's not something, oh, we need to go book shows with this. This is an album we stand behind. Like, I want to go out in my living room and have a glass of wine or a cup of coffee or whatever it is, and talk the album on and relax. And this is the album that I can do that with, that I created. And I feel good about that,
For sure. I don't want to keep you guys too late, but is it okay if I ask you one question?
Sure.
Totally.
So, this is for each of you individually as well. Is there any message you'd like to give previous fans, new fans, anyone interested in seeing your show or listening to the new album?
Well, let me just say that for people that have heard us before or aware of us, I will say that if you haven't heard this yet, it really does take it up a notch. I think I think you will recognize it as Suns Arrive, but I think they'll be it's well worth a listen. I'll say.
Hmm.
I've also had people say, "But well, how do you do all that live? You're only three people. We do just fine." I say, "Come to the shows and you'll see." But yeah, that's all I got to say.
For me, it's gratitude. We've been really good with this release, putting it out. We've gotten a great response.
Hmm.
We have pre-orders right now. It releases Friday. We actually have vinyl in record stores here in Chicago for Record Store Day. I want to kind of share that too. So for the people who come out and actually have pre-ordered based on new fans, and there's been a considerable amount. For me, it's gratitude, and for everybody who supported us before too. Like, yeah, it's just all about gratitude and just
Hmm.
giving thanks for the support, because without any of that, we wouldn't be doing this. So
Yeah,
that's my biggest thing. So
good point.
Yeah, I'll just build on both of those because I think it's because I think what's fun about us knowing it more in the scene in Chicago is that this goes back almost to last question, but I kind of joke sometimes that we're like a tripolar band where like we can sort of like we really can tailor our music. Like we figure out which of our friends we're playing with. If it's like a heavier show, we bring out the heavier songs. If we're playing with like Paula Bella and stuff, we'll do like more jazzy stuff. And so I think it's yeah, anyone that will give it a listen, I think it's appreciated because I know it's it, instrumental in general is always like challenging for people. And I think what we're trying to do is like we want it to have like the music, like the musician and the artist like nods where like we're trying some stuff, but at the same time we want people to feel like okay, this is like I was saying earlier, like this is kind of dancey. Like there's a feel to it. We're not just like and like Eric mentioned, we're not just playing solos the whole time. Like we get into a groove, like I kind of lock in the grooves and then that allows them like Keith or Eric, depending on the parts, for them to like explore, but the drums are holding it down or the bass is holding it down. And
Hmm.
so I think yeah, it's appreciative when people want to give instrumental stuff a listen and give it the time of day. So it's give it a new listen because I don't think it sounds like what we've released before, what they released before me, and then what we released before. And so I just want anyone to give
yeah.
it kind of a listen with fresh ears and be like open to new sounds.
Yeah, for sure. And for anyone interested, it's Tropic of Cancer and it does come out on Friday. And again, I want to thank you, all three of you, for coming and doing this interview with me.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
Enjoy the rest of your evening.
You too.
All right.
You as well, Alex. Thank you.
Bye.